Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So, Jim, we've got another fascinating guest here today, somebody who reached out to us, and we're so glad he did. We're excited this morning to welcome Mike Bruno. Now, Mike is a police officer out in New Jersey, so we thank him for his service in law enforcement, something he and I have in common from me a couple of careers ago. But in addition to that, he is, shall we say, an avid collector, and we'll talk a lot about that on this episode. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you both for having me on the show.
This is an exciting and probably one of the most dangerous parts of Rocketeer fandom, because there are so many amazing things out there, and they're all for purchase somewhere at some price.
Right.
You from what we understand, you have a rather impressive collection of movie props and memorabilia associated with the Rocketeer.
Don't want to brag, but I do.
Now, I have to know, is Rocketeer your primary focus, or do you have other movie memorabilia, or do you just kind of focus in on this film?
It is my primary collection, but I have deviated a little bit into James Bond, Jingle All the Way, just to name a few.
Wow.
Edward Scissorhands, but Rocketeer is definitely the focus of my collection.
Now, we could talk all night about James Bond stuff as well. Both Jim and I have a pretty strong Bond affiliation as well.
And it definitely, there's some similarities between that film, Rocketeer, but
sure.
More so probably Jingle All the Way, because it's got the rocket pack as well.
Yeah,
so.
That's right.
Now, how did you? What was your first item that you've ever picked up that was Rocketeer related?
Well, the first item that I ever got in contact with is actually the reason why I love the character, was the Rocketeer 3D Sight and Sound comic book.
Yes, I remember that one. I think I
Yes.
still have mine somewhere.
I actually have mine sitting right next to me.
Oh, excellent.
So, back in 1991, June, I remember seeing the trailers on TV. And, I didn't make it to the theaters at that age. I was only 6. But my mother took me to the local comic book store, and that's where I first saw, the advertisement and the Rocketeer 3D comic book with the cassette included. And that just blew me away.
And the glasses that came with that, they were the red and blue, if I remember right, red and blue anaglyph glasses.
Yes,
that
red and blue.
And they sort of look like the lenses of the Rocketeer helmet, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, the included glasses don't fit my frame anymore, so I had to think outside the box on that one. But
we all grow, apparently.
I think actually it was advertised on the back of the movie program, so they were cross marketing as much as possible.
Yes, they were, and most notably, in the Rocketeer souvenir magazine, it's actually a full cover advertisement right on the back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we've just been looking at that one again. I've gotten reacquainted with that after not having thumbed through it in quite a few years.
I think that all the listeners should always have the souvenir, handbook handy when they're listening to the show. You can just kind of glance through it and.
That's a good point, Jim. I think it's time we start issuing some requirements.
I think
for our listeners on this show.
So I think once they get one, which they really should go out and look for them, and I'm sure the sudden demand for this item will probably push the price of the souvenir out
Yes.
a lot higher.
It'll push it up by pennies. I have no doubt about that. It is a great read and some great behind the scenes stuff. It's really the closest thing to. As a huge Star Wars fan, among everything else, I always love the art of books, the art of Star Wars, the art of Return of the Jedi, all that kind of stuff. We've never gotten that with the Rocketeer, so that souvenir magazine about as close as we come in terms of behind the scenes photos and production sketches and layout of the story, and even a couple of scenes that were cut after the magazine went to press, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. And right now, the particular minute that we're in, if you'll all turn to your souvenir guide on page 31,
Yes.
we have just we caught up yesterday with as Billy was describing his time in the mud at the I Like It stage, and
Right.
the aftermath of of that undercranked camera with the Model T. You wouldn't happen to own a Model T by any chance, would you, Mike? I just
don't, but my family does have a 28 Franklin.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, that's cool.
Wow.
Which was a favorite of Charles Lindbergh.
Wow.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, the Peavy's truck we see here, I did a little bit of digging. It's a 1933 Ford, so it'll be about 5 years old. So it does kind of make you wonder why is he having trouble starting it? It's only 5 years old, but then again, that was almost sort of 20% of Ford history, that 5 years. So it's a Model 46. It's a half-ton pickup, and it's got a V8. And since I know everybody is desperate for this last little bit of information, it's got a 112-inch wheelbase. So
it was kind of the.
I don't know where we
Ranger
go
of
from
its
here,
day.
Jim, but I've dropped the biggie.
You it's all there. We were talking yesterday with Billy about how this section was undercranked, and he doesn't particularly like this particular scene because he thought that it should have a gentle surge rather than the sudden jump,
Right.
because he'd be thrown. He'd probably be thrown through the through the truck, and then would just wind up down the road with another load of laundry on his shoulders.
Although it is funny, we've talked to Billy several times, and I think we will more coming up, about the sort of the difficulties of getting in and out of the whole Rocketeer getup. This is, as we've said before, this is not Clark Kent running into a phone booth and coming out dressed as Superman. And right about second, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, you see him sort of fussing with a couple of buttons and then basically giving up because it's just too much work to do all of those buttons over the top of the harness, which is over the top of the other part of the jacket and all that stuff. But yeah, then he hops in the back and fires off the jetpack. As you say, we're undercranked, and off goes that Ford. And Peavy is making sort of the oddest face.
Yeah,
it's like somebody told him, act like you're accelerating, I guess, is what he's trying to do there.
Yeah. I do have to ask Mike, of the most of the people that we've been talking to who are fans and collectors, they focus a lot on the Rocketeer's costume. What particular portions of the costume do you have? Do you have any like the jackets or anything? Or?
Yeah, actually, starting with the jacket, I actually have two. I actually have Wested leather, produced it a few years ago, which I still make today. A cowhide version of the jacket. The leather's a little bit darker than what you see on screen, but that is a tough jacket. So I can definitely feel Cliff's pain in that scene, trying to undo that button. I mean, especially with the wet leather. Yeah. That's definitely a tough one. And the second jacket that I'm mostly proud of is actually the official Disney released Rocketeer jacket that was released a very short time in the park, and it was also used by the walk-around Rocketeer who was
really?
posing in the park. Yes. And the jacket that I have is actually that appearance, that character in the park. That's his jacket.
Wow.
How'd you come across that, or is that better left unsaid?
Believe it or not, it was on eBay.
Really?
Huh.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, a collector had bought it from a prop house in L.A. It was marketed as a real jacket from the film. The collector looked into it, and it turned out that it was from Disney, but it was utilized by one of the employees as a walk-around character. So
Interesting.
he felt that it could be better served in better hands. So.
And you never know what you're going to find on eBay, that's for sure.
Oh, it's a global flea market.
Yes, exactly. One of my dear friends is a director at eBay. He's been there for quite a while, and he's coming on the show at some point. But we keep missing schedules and things. We'll get him on here soon.
I was wondering that I would think a key piece of collecting, especially with things like screen use props and stuff, is checking the provenance. What's your typical path for finding out whether something was screen used? Where does that information usually come from?
Sometimes I like to deal with people directly. It definitely, if they can produce a receipt from the company. Companies that I like to deal with are propstore.com and screenuse.com. Those are the most popular. Those people operating that website check an item's authenticity from top to bottom. So that's where I get majority of my props from. But I do know that Disney actually had some Disney auctions that were on eBay, I think from the year 2000 to maybe 2003. So they actually sold a lot of Rocketeer props on eBay, you know, back in the day. I unfortunately wasn't aware, or wasn't a collector at the time, but a lot of the pieces in my collection today do come with a Disney certificate of authenticity, which since about 2003 has never been done again.
That's just amazing. Now, when you first reached out, and I really want to get into a little bit more of the other stuff you have in your collection, but when you first reached out, you told us a little bit about one of the buckles. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes, I actually own the lower harness buckle of the Sirius X3. That buckle is actually four that were sourced for the movie for production, and to this day, nobody knows officially its maker, its intended use, and no other originals have surfaced. So it's a really unique buckle. It's kind of elusive, and if you did search the RPF or Google,
Right.
you can see that a lot of people have just come close to finding its source, but nothing official.
So it was an existing buckle, and the prop master or costume designer found it and used it. So it wasn't specifically built for the film, the buckle in particular.
No, no.
But nobody knows for sure what it was originally meant for.
Yeah, that people are saying it's most likely a parachute harness buckle, but nobody knows exactly, officially.
Right.
Its maker, its intended use. People have come close. They've actually there's a little. If you look real close at one of the screen grabs, you can see that there's a little almost like pine tree design with the number 11 on the bottom, and that has been linked to a company called Schmoll and Comp. And looking into it, that's a good lead, but typing in Schmoll and Comp in Google and doesn't really do much for you. Apparently they just made automotive tools.
Really?
I've been doing some research on my end, and I actually developed a new lead where the company name that I actually believe is called Schroeder and Comp. And Schroeder and Comp were actually makers of German, for World War II, German parachute packs. So I believe that the actual name of the buckle, the company, is called Schroeder and Comp. And if you look online, you'll actually see buckles extremely similar, actually more so than buckles that have been previously explored.
Interesting. Now, if I remember correctly, and please straighten me out if I'm misremembering from your email, but you, in addition, you have an original screen use, sort of a hero piece, this buckle, but you either had or have come across some reproductions based on that.
Yes, another owner of an original buckle, one of the four, actually broke down his buckle. His name is Clint of Acme Design Incorporated, and he actually
Seriously, Acme Design,
Acme Design
as
Incorporated.
in the Roadrunner
Portable
and the
holes.
Coyote.
Yeah.
Portable
it.
holes, exactly. That's how I love it.
He
He's already
definitely
my hero.
Definitely capitalized on that.
Yes.
And he broke down one of his buckles and reproduced a very accurate replica, based completely in metal, makes that nice, closure sound, and that buckle is actually in the collection of Adam Savage from Mythbusters right now.
Oh.
That's great. We've pinged Adam since we knew he did a pretty active, got pretty excited about his Rocketeer costume build and everything, and we've tried him on Twitter a couple of times and no response as of yet. But you never know. We'd sure love to get him on and talk to him about why he built a costume. And I guess speaking of why, as we sort of wander around through the conversation here, let's back up a little bit. You saw this comic book, the 3D comic, when you were 6, and it really captured you. Can you explain why you've loved it as long as you have? Why it's been basically a part of almost all of your life, and what drives you to go and collect this stuff?
Well, as I said, when you're 6 years old, when the advertisement tells you it's the world's first 3D sight and comic book, you're saying to yourself, for a character to have that kind of title, it's got to be something.
Right.
It's got to be magic. And when I put those 3D glasses on and the character was just jumping off the pages while I was listening to the cassette, it just really captured my interest. I always had an interest of flight. I love the Superman films, the Reeve films, and it just really left an impression on me. Loved the rocket pack, and I especially loved that helmet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just cannot beat that helmet.
No, in fact, that was actually the first prop that I bought. I intended just to get only a helmet, and with that helmet, I just received so many compliments, and it was just such satisfaction from just receiving a nicely painted replica of the helmet. and it just grew to what else can I get? Maybe that'll look nice on the wall.
Right. Now, to your helmet, is that one of sort of the branded licensed ones, or was that a kit, or where did that come from?
The first one was actually a fiberglass replica based on an official Medicom release in 2006.
Oh, okay.
And it was wearable, beautiful, and my fascination unfortunately didn't stop there.
Do you have more than one Rocketeer helmet now, Mike?
I do. I have
You
four.
can tell us. You have four.
Four. I'm a little bit of a hoarder.
It all starts with one. Yeah.
I say it all sorts of. I'm sitting here looking at mine. I've got the Master Replicas version on display next to me right now. That I've
Not
always,
a great helmet.
Yeah, I've always loved it. I've been very happy with it. I don't wear it that often. Only when podcasting. But four. So you still have that original fiberglass one that you bought. What are the other helmets you've got?
That has actually moved on from my
that has moved
collection.
on.
Yes, the ones that I retain now were actually direct, to the production, or were used for marketing. And the marketing one I can speak about, Master Replicas, when they were first doing their advertisements, they advertised a very faithful recreation of the Rocketeer helmet. In fact, it was actually studio cast. It was actually poured from the original studio mold in the Disney vault. And when the helmet was on tour, to spark some interest, I was able to acquire that original helmet from our beloved Evil Rocketeer.
Oh, excellent. And that's we've mentioned him before, Evil Rocketeer, that we've seen evidence of his collection on the RPF.com. That's the replica prop for him.
Yes.
And, for somebody I feel like I could be great friends with, I think maybe Evil Rocketeer is perhaps a bit of a misnomer. But anyway, and I have reached out to him to talk about him being on the show, but we haven't made connection as of yet. So perhaps Evil will just remain lurking in the shadows. He can be out there with Johnny Depp and being sort of in the background of our show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he definitely deserved that Evil title.
Excellent.
You wouldn't happen to have a popcorn box, would you? Because I'm fascinated by the popcorn box in this particular minute that Paul Sorvino kicks out of. That's not Mike. That is. Or is it Mike? That is Mike.
I think that is Mike. Yeah, Spanish Johnny's off to the right.
Yeah, and then Mr. Ketchup Bottle. Gosh, can't think of his name now. It's dropped off my radar.
So I've looked at, I've done some digging, some looking around, and I suspect that popcorn box is probably just, sort of just an original design for the film. Although the colors are almost exactly like a company. It's Cretors. I don't know if it's Cretors or Crators popcorn that had been around since the late 1800s, and they used that dark blue, whereas your sort of your classic stereotypical vintage popcorn box is red and white, and lots of colors like that. But and I could almost convince myself at about second 26 that it says Crators at the top. On the front of the box that we can't really see, but it could also say just delicious or something like that. But my best guess so far.
Well, I can actually put that debate to rest because I actually own that popcorn box that was smacked out of his hand.
Wow.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not. I can actually read you. It's actually in my hands as we speak. And I can actually...
Jim, I love our show. I absolutely love this.
I can picture the tears streaming down Hal's face as he's listening. So yes,
finally,
please.
I can know the answer. Mike, tell us, what does it say?
Okay. If you play your cards right, I'll even send you a picture, all right?
Oh, excellent. Fingers crossed.
It says on top, the best ingredients used, exclamation point. In the center, it says delicious. On the bottom, it says wholesome, nutritious popcorn. And on the side, it's even better. It says on the top, fresh popcorn, in quotes, I'll say it's good, end quote, crisp.
Excellent. So, but there isn't what looks like maybe a specific brand name or logo?
Nope.
Interesting.
No.
So all the way around. So that tells me, I would guess then that was purpose made for the film. Now, do you have any idea, were there more than one of those made? Did we see any in the stands?
We do see some in the stands.
Okay.
There was more than one made. And through our director, Joe Johnston, I actually received an unused, unfolded, signed popcorn box.
Wow.
So, I do know that there was definitely more than one.
So Jim, from this point forward, I propose that that we retool and we relaunch as the Mike Bruno show.
Yes.
And then you and I will just be the giggling audience, because I feel like that's all I've got left to contribute, because I'm stunned that you're holding that popcorn box in your hand right now.
This is a dream. This is a dream come true. It's Al has he met the love of his life and married her, and now he's found out what's on the popcorn box. So a happy man. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, bucket list check.
Yeah.
And yes, by all means, if you feel so inclined, please do send us a picture. That would be a real kick to be able to share alongside this episode.
Absolutely. It's good to know that it wasn't just lost, after that scene. It wasn't just tossed in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much ephemera, from this movie that I know that many of the things are reused. I'm sure the suits have been in many other movies and things, but just seeing little bits especially made for the Rocketeer or that have a special place in this. By the way, this minute, of all the minutes that we've seen Paul Sorvino, this is my favorite acting of his. He just, that nonchalant, get in the car.
It's almost like a father scolding his child,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we've heard some wonderful things about Paul, both on and off the show, from Billy, about what he was like to work with, and what an absolute larger than life character he is. And we've got feelers out, and we've got maybe a little bit of a long shot. We do have a connection. We do have a path. So we're hoping he'll come on one of these days.
Yeah, he is great in this particular scene. Yeah, and I have a feeling that might have been a little bit of improv, or just a last minute thing. He did add some. There's some items, and we'll be talking about them in the near future, about some other improv things that Paul did to make this movie just a little bit beefed up a bit. So we get back. We leave the Malibu Hills, and get back into Otis Bigelow's office, where he's got hounds of eager press boys ready to get all the beans spilled to them about this Rocket Boy.
Exactly.
Except that's a really lousy name.
Right. Well, as he's walking in, we notice some things hanging on the wall. There's what looks to me like an old brass fire extinguisher, and then some pictures. There's George Washington, and then a picture of a bust of Teddy Roosevelt. Jim, you called out, I believe it was Calvin Coolidge.
Calvin Coolidge in the upper left.
And then there's the Capitol building there. Or sorry, Calvin Coolidge, sort of upper right is from the viewer's point of view. Capitol building there in the upper left. Below him, I'm just not certain. And then the bust of Teddy. Mike, do you have any of these pictures in your hands right now by any chance?
I don't.
Okay,
but
then.
I was
then
looking at
quest
that gold
is not
shovel.
over.
The gold, that shovel.
The groundbreaking from, is that Chaplin Airfield?
Yes, that is of Chaplin Airfield, and I've looked for that one. That would be kind of cool to hang on the wall, but never surfaced.
Chaplin Airfield groundbreaking. And if you look at the second, it's right at second 43, when the flash goes off, that's when you can really read the date of April 5th, 1926.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
What always bothers me about that particular shovel is that at a groundbreaking ceremony, you wouldn't be using a flat-handled a grain shovel. You'd be using a spade, and it would have a pointed tip. So it just kind of bothers me about that fact that they use a flat shovel instead of a spade.
Now, Mike, when you were 6 and reading your comic book and dreaming of seeing this movie, had you known they used the wrong shovel on the wall for a groundbreaking, would that have destroyed the film for you once and for all?
Years later, I found out.
Years later. And by that time, we're so invested. What can we do?
Exactly.
We just have to accept the occasional flaw and move on.
I did actually have something to contribute about the cameras being used. Not in just scene, but if we can back up to a few minutes prior, you can actually see when the Rocketeer is doing his first flight at Chaplin Airfield, some of the reporters are using flash handles that have been attached to their cameras.
Oh, sure.
If you look closely at one of the flash handles, it's the identical flash handle that was used for Luke Skywalker's lightsaber.
Oh, excellent. The old Graflex.
Yes, the old Graflex 3-cell.
Isn't that just cool?
And there's a little continuity error because that Graflex didn't come out till around the mid-40s.
Oh, interesting. I knew it was vintage. I didn't realize that was
the company was around, but that particular model didn't surface till around the 40s.
But first the flash handle, now the shovel. What are we doing here?
I know. I'm just destroying.
They're all over the place. Wow.
I still love this movie more than I could ever admit.
And somewhere, I wonder if somewhere somebody has that, the multiple plywood boards that made up Pioneer Petroleum. It's a great picture there of a 49er, and as far as we can tell, there is no real Pioneer.
Yeah, and Mike, maybe you know more about that than I do. I did some digging, and there's a company in Canada that started in the mid-50s that started as Pioneer Petroleum, but wouldn't have any connection or relation to something we'd see here in the period of 38. What is interesting is that you can find several references all over the web of a company called Pioneer Petroleum starting in 1924, which sounds very legitimate, except every single one of these sites that refers to it are sites that are selling you example term papers and example college essays online, and there doesn't seem to be any. At least what I have found, there doesn't seem to be anything sort of backing it up that this was something real. It's more like, here's a sample, a sample essay if you've got a term paper due, so download this and then, change the facts as needed, but use this as a template, because every Google hit comes back to that.
I always thought that the image that we saw of the Pioneer Petroleum was actually created for the film. Just like you said, there's really not much about it on the internet.
Right.
But if you actually look, if you freeze frame it, it's actually very interesting what you can learn looking at a film 1 minute at a time.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the character, his jacket is eerily similar to Cliff's. It has that front bib that has the button closures on the side.
Yeah, that's true. Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. I never would have thought about that.
So looking at it, and it's funny, it just, as I was preparing for this minute, when I freeze framed it just like you two do, and I never picked that up before.
Yeah, that's really something. And in that same shot, of course, off to the left, we've got the public telephone. We've got a couple of well-costumed extras sort of sauntering through the scene, and those great red, white, and blue banners hanging in front of the stands. But that's really interesting. I never thought about that guy with a jacket, but that sure is similar, isn't it?
I do like the being able to freeze frame and going up to second 52 in this one. I think all the character actors that are playing the press boys are trying to out press boy each other. Second 52, when that flashes go, they're like, strike the most amazed, pondering, and questioning face you can possibly do, and do it in this scene, because they all.
Well, you got the cameraman in the back whose eyes are wide, and he's trying to shoot over the top of everybody. You've got the guy second from the left with his hand out, gesturing, and his eyes are honestly about to pop out of his head. He is so, as you said, he is so into this. He's so intent and so focused. And then, everybody's sort of barking at everybody. And
the two fellows with their tongues on the side of their mouth, because, that's the standard thing to show that you're concentrating while you're writing.
Yes, exactly. I can't write without my tongue sticking out to the left. That's exactly it.
And then the rather dapper fellow in the bow tie on the right with just ready to bite Bigelow's head off to come up with a better name.
Now, Mike, have you ever come across any of these little pin-on Chaplain Field press, the little ribbons that they wear?
Yes, I actually have a bunch of them.
Mike, you're my hero.
Hal's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Exactly. It's an all the Who's down at Whoville.
Yeah.
All the Who's down at Chaplain Field.
Good.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty convinced that if I freeze framed about every scene, I at least have one prop in that film.
That is absolutely just incredible. So, is there one thing that you're the most proud of, or one thing that when you show, if Jim and I were to come to your house, and I'm not saying we're doing that, not uninvited, because breaking into a cop's house is a really bad idea, I say from experience. But is there one thing people like us who really appreciate and love the film that you think you would show us that would give us the strongest reaction, or the
sock knocker offer?
Yes, exactly. Now, granted, you haven't mentioned anything so far that my socks are 20 feet across the room already, just from the things you've mentioned offhand. But
well, it's kind of a three-way tie. It's definitely my production used helmet.
Wow.
That definitely gets a lot of people talking, excited.
Yes.
It would either be my production used jetpack, rocket pack that was used in the film. But if I had to pick, number one would be my stop motion maquette of the Rocketeer.
Are you kidding me?
Holy smokes! Wow.
Yes.
Wow, where in the world did you come across that one?
That one doesn't have the most interesting story, but I actually got that from propstore.com.
Okay.
And it actually just came. I actually just went to WrestleMania here in the Garden State, and I think I was just recovering the next day,
Right.
and I was just checking the web, and there it just popped up, and I'm like, oh my god,
Wow.
yeah, just
That
a
is just
grail
amazing.
item.
I'm just
yeah.
picturing leaning over Hulk Hogan saying, "Here it comes, brother."
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Can you smell what Mike is cooking?
How tall is that maquette? How big
It's
is it?
about 23 inches tall.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
it has
about
it
third
has
scale.
several armatures on it, or how many armatures do you think? Does it the knees bend or where?
This is actually the static version of that maquette. This is not the one that was used. This is not the stop motion puppet that was utilized in the film. I believe Disney still, retains both of them. There was a rumor that one of the stop motion maquettes were sold on eBay, but I've never seen a picture surface. The maquette that I have is a static model, which is the same one that's in the ILM museum today. You can find that picture online, and I believe that this one I have was actually owned by the ILM employee Jean Bolte. I believe that's how you say her last name. If she's listening, I don't mean to pronounce it the wrong way, but on the bottom of his foot it was signed Jean, and it's funny because in the Rocketeer's helmet, right by his chin, you can actually see a very faint heart that was painted on the helmet. It's almost like a little personal touch. I can show you a
Really?
picture of what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
cool.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe when Jean was, you can actually see her in the Rocketeer, Excitement in the Air.
Sure, yeah.
Online. You can actually see her talking about how she was making the stop motion puppet's leather jacket out of latex because it had those nice
right,
wrinkles
yeah.
in it.
You don't by chance have a better copy of Excitement in the Air than the sort of the VHS transfer that's on YouTube, do you?
I do.
It might be easier. Let's start the movie over. Let's go through this. Let's try to figure out the things you don't have. I don't think you have the flying GB replica because I've seen that in a museum.
No.
But otherwise, so tell me about what format is that in? That's amazing.
It's a VHS copy.
Okay.
That actually a dear friend of mine and fellow Rocketeer collector John Datz sold to me, and it is a great copy. And in fact, on that copy is actually footage that I haven't seen posted on the internet. It's talking to one of the Rocketeer stuntmen.
Really?
His name escapes me at the time, but this was the performer who was attached to one of the rigs as he was flying over the audience in the Chaplin Airfield.
Was it Jim Arnett by any chance?
I want to say his
I know he
name
was
was.
the
I want
coordinator,
to
but
say
I
his
think he
name was
also
Michael.
did- Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
find,
sure that's in
we'll
that
find out. Report
Cinefex
back
magazine.
later.
That is just absolutely amazing. Mike, do you mind if I ask you a quick personal question?
Yeah, sure.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
So okay, so I'm not about to propose. Don't misunderstand. But what is your spouse make of all of this?
My wife is very supportive of my hobby.
That's wonderful.
She's very supportive. She also is a fan of the Rocketeer and Disney characters in general.
Oh, that's excellent.
So she definitely, put it this way, we have a guest room in our home, and she let me utilize the guest room as the unofficial Rocketeer museum.
Excellent.
Ah,
And it's the place Jim and I are going to be staying when we come out to see you. So that all worked out nicely. That's very
Well,
good
the
planning on your
couch-
part.
The couch is a pull-out bed, so it is still a semi-functional guest
Still
room.
technically a guest room. Well, we had Jamie Hicks. I'm sorry,
Jamie Hicks.
Adam was somebody else who just wrote us. Sorry, Jamie. I know you're listening. It's been a long day for both of us out here. Anyway, when he was on, we definitely gave a shout out to his wife for being very patient while he was always off in his workshop tinkering. But certainly the same goes to your lovely bride as well.
it's great. It's great that she can appreciate the same topic. So this is a nice
Right.
overlap,
Yes.
dovetailing.
And it's funny, I actually do have a connection with Jamie Hicks, and he probably doesn't know it.
Oh, really?
When he was selling his brass Master Replica's helmet, I was the buyer on that.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
I was
staying in the
gonna say,
family.
right.
That's
It's all among
So
all the
yes, all the
pinheads,
pinheads,
yes.
all among friends
The-
here.
Wow. We are coming up on this last part of the minute. We probably a more common souvenir or collectible that's out there are the many stacks of Los Angeles newspapers. In this case, the Examiner is the first one that we see with Man Flies Without Plane. We're in a side note. We wind up learning through the papers. We learn Malcolm's last name is Willis. Not mentioned anywhere in the script, but in one of the articles about the Rocketeer, it mentions rescuing Malcolm Willis from a certain death. Of course, you have to buy one of them, or you have to be at least have access to one of these props to learn that. Or listen to our show.
Mike, do you have some of the newspapers? And I believe we see. I think we'll talk about this a lot more tomorrow, but I think we see 3 distinct newspapers, at least in this in this segment of the film.
I own all 3.
Of course. Excellent. You did not let me down, sir. I am not disappointed in you.
I definitely aim to please, so.
This is fantastic.
Hal is going to devote his life now to be.
Let's see.
But it is interesting. You bring up a good point that this paper was never really seen up close. It's just for the title up top, Man Flies Without Plane, and Rocketeer Thrills Crowd. But in that Rocketeer Thrills crowd, Man Flies Without Plane, the prop creator actually put about a healthy portion, probably about 2 paragraphs worth of actual created text that documents, almost like what had occurred that day at Chaplin Airfield.
That's interesting. I was looking at a higher res picture, and as I said, we'll talk about this a bit tomorrow, but I know some of the other stories were just spurious and, sort of anachronistic stories from other places and things like that. But that's interesting. I wasn't aware that Rocketeer Thrills crowd that had a good sort of accurate bit of storytelling to it.
Yes, the Man Flies Without Plane. That's the only one that has some text which is relevant to the film. I could read it to you over the air, but I don't know. It's kind of wordy.
It's never too late for story time, but.
Oh well, let's go
for it. I'll put my feet up.
All right.
Pour myself another drink.
All right, story time. Rocketeer Thrills crowd, Chaplin Field, Los Angeles. A crowd of 1,000 witnessed excitement at the annual Rocketeer Bigelow Air Circus when a, quote, flying man roared from the sky to rescue pilot Malcolm Willis from sure disaster. Willis took off from Chaplin Field to perform a choreographed routine called the Clown Act in a J1 Standard. He was dressed as a clown with a wig and red nose. His plane seemed to be in trouble immediately as it stayed into the race lanes and dipped and wobbled erratically. Officials at the air circus were unable to take action, as it was unclear whether Willis was intentionally unsteady or was seriously out of control. The flying man seemed to appear from nowhere through several witnesses claimed to have seen a flash of light near the hangar at the center of the field. He flew without visible wires or other means of air support. At first, this Rocketeer flew out of control, confusing the crowd further as he appeared to be a part of the act. He flew directly at the standard, then swooped and dove, finally plucking Willis from the plane just seconds before it crashed. And that's the end of it.
Wow. It's amazing. And I can't get over the level of detail. And I really blame Dave Stevens for getting involved in this to bring those kind of details. Even though we don't see it on the screen, he really made those little touches that you knew that was going on in the movie.
Well, and I think Stevens certainly found a friend in Joe Johnston too. When you see Joe Johnston's touch across any of his films, it's it's like looking at a fractal. You keep zooming in, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you never quite get all the way in. I mean, in these newspapers, we can find a little text here and there that's a bit anachronistic, but you can't complain about the text that's on the bottom of the newspaper in the seat because you simply cannot see it. But it is amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Stevens and Joe Johnston were kindred spirits in getting it right and being able to tell a story. And like you said, at the fractal level, you could just push in further and dig down, and it still holds up. It
really does, and may rest in peace, John Polito. There's a great picture of him as Bigelow right at the bottom of that newspaper, holding up one of the programs.
Oh, excellent! Yeah,
and he's just beaming in that particular picture, just ear to ear smile. That this is a marketing dream come true for Otis. It's such a great film. It's so rewatchable, and Mike, I'm sure you've run into people who have never seen The Rocketeer, and I know one of my personal joys is watching people who have never seen this movie experience it for the first time.
It is definitely nice when I encounter somebody who's interested in, let's just say, Captain America or Indiana Jones, and I recommend this film. They get back to me and it's like, where has this been? Why isn't this celebrated more? And it's great. I love the movie because it's opened up so many doors for me. Because I talk to people who love the film, and our common bond is this film, and it opens up so many doors to like so many nice people. Every person I met was just nicer than the next, and talking with you two is just proof of that.
Yeah, it's great. This whole podcast seems to be a fantastic excuse to meet people that share this interest, and I've learned so much just doing this. I know Hal and I both get flabbergasted at the end of these things. It's like, can you believe we just just had a chance to talk to these people about this movie and
well, it is absolutely amazing. I mean, both of us came into this, and I don't want to speak for you, Jim, but I certainly never considered myself an expert on The Rocketeer. I would put my love of it, if it were a competition, my love and adoration for the film right up there with just about anybody's. And so much appreciation for the detail of it, and then certainly with my background in my life, my love of vintage aviation and vintage flying and things like that. But neither one of us came in and said, well, we're the two guys who know everything about The Rocketeer, and I think we've been lucky because we've been able to be the two most enthusiastic students of the film and to learn so much as we've gone along. Here we are in minute 47, sort of creeping up, getting a little closer to the halfway mark, which is almost profoundly depressing. But to look back on the things, the people we've met, the new friends that we've made, like Mike here, and everything that we've learned about the film, and then just about filmmaking and about history, everything going beyond that. It's been a powerful experience already, and like I said, not even halfway done.
And funny, so far, knock on wood, so far nothing has dissuaded me from this. I mean, we met out of the blue. Billy Campbell reached out to us and said that he liked talking about things, and he was willing to be on the show, and is here just about every week, and he is everything that we had hoped for and more. I mean, he's just such a great guy to talk to, and he's willing to talk about these the good and bad of this movie, and I think that was one of the bigger surprises.
And then to come across somebody like you, Mike, who obviously shares that passion, but you've focused it in such a way, and there is something profound about this film, and there's a handful of sort of films or TV shows that I put in the same category, but as soon as anytime I watch it, or even watch a minute of it, which we've been doing here, and then I go back and watch the whole thing again periodically, but anytime I do, in a crass sort of way, I would say, well, I want to just reach for my checkbook, but really what it is I do want pieces of it. I do want to capture the feeling of this world as many different ways as I can. And while I certainly haven't emulated your experience as a collector, I dare say I do understand it on a pretty strong level, and appreciate it, that's for sure.
Have you met through collecting and things, have you met any of the cast or crew of The Rocketeer as this was going on?
I did meet through email. I did talk to Joe Johnston. That was great. It's actually a really nice story. I reached out to him when he started his website, Joe Johnston Sketchbook,
right.
And I was actually asking him about the lower harness buckle. Well, of course, I thanked him for his work on the movie, but I was asking if he had any information he could share about it. And Joe said to me in an email that he didn't have any further information, but he actually personally picked that buckle for usage in the film. He okayed it, and the one thing that he loved about it was just the sound, like that sexy sound, and that's quote, that sexy sound that it made when it closed, and that just sold him, and that's the reason why that piece is in that film, besides it just looking so, advanced for the time.
Now, Mike, if you would, as we talk about your collection and all the things in the film that I'm here sitting, what's on that popcorn box? Well, I'm holding it in my hand. I'll read it to you. I'm amazed. I'm stunned by this. Let's go on the record right now, in case anybody has any suspicions, and can you confirm for us that you do not have Jennifer Connelly tied up in your basement?
I think I have the next best thing.
Okay, I was expecting an emphatic no, but pray continue. What is the next best thing?
I do have Jenny's wardrobe.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Jim,
Do you have the bib? Do you have the tomato soup covered bib on the wimple of that pinafore?
Yes, I do, and it's on a mannequin right now.
Okay, I need photos of that. Wow. Okay, that yeah. Oh, my mind is officially boggled. That's wow. And I guess you have the South. Do you have the South Seas? I keep thinking of questions, but it's like, well,
Yeah.
do you have this? Do you have the South
Do you have
Seas
that?
dress?
Yes, I do.
Oh my god! And you have is it the polka dot number at the end? The
The last
the side of
the
heaven.
last piece of wardrobe you see
Yeah.
her wearing.
Yeah, the closest I'll get to heaven.
I don't have that one.
Okay, but wow, but yeah,
So
you have wow. you
Perhaps
have
he
the
is
suit dress
human,
and
a human after all, Jim. I'm not sure, but Mike.
Holy smokes! So somewhere in New Jersey, that's where Jenny's dress is. Okay,
I'm just flummoxed.
Okay.
And that's not a word I
Yeah.
use every day. Flabbergasted.
yeah, yeah.
Completely
Flabbergasted,
befuddled.
flummoxed.
Where's my thesaurus?
Yeah, wow. You've become a hero to both of us, Mike. Thank you very much. Holy smokes! Wow. It does, and it still has the tomato soup. I mean, can you
Yes,
still...
it was never cleaned from set, as is.
Wow. Okay,
And I have this
Okay,
horribly
wow.
pathetic picture,
Yes.
image of myself clutching it, saying, "I'll never wash this dress again." But
Wow. Okay. Wow. Well, I'm impressed. I can't tell it. Someday there'll be the Museum of the Rocketeer,
Yes.
absolutely.
and we'll have
we will
Mike
pay
thank
handsomely for
it.
admission.
That is. Does the EAA have room for a special exhibit?
We
I don't
always
know
do.
if,
We've got traveling. We've got. In fact, we just have as of Friday, we installed a new Apollo exhibit. We had a gentleman from NASA out, and we've got a few things. Bill Anders flown spacesuit and a LEM engine and a couple of moon rocks and lots of cool artifacts that have just come in that'll be on display for our big air show as we do a salute to Apollo this year. But
Very nice.
Well, I think the 30th anniversary of the Rocketeer will be coming up in 2019. So I think, I'm sorry, 2021, and you'll need to start negotiating with Mike now.
yeah, I think so. Although, frankly, I think we all need to have it. We need to get Billy and have a big party at Santa Maria for the
Yes.
30th
Yes.
anniversary. And that way we'll announce the the special edition Blu-ray with all the behind the scenes stuff that you and I narrate, Jim.
Yes.
Oh, a boy can dream,
Right
can't
on
he?
through. Wow. Yes,
Yes.
one can hope. Keep your fingers crossed. But Mike, thank you so much for being on our show. This has been illuminating, enlightening, and all those other things that make this movie so special to all
It's
of
my
us.
pleasure, and thank you both for having me on. And any way I can help contribute information-wise, I have some call sheets and production memos and behind-the-scenes photos. So any way I can help, further the podcast, it'd be my pleasure.
You're going to be our
Yes.
personal Google on that. I'm impressed, and one of the things is I can tell you I am relieved. I'm so glad that all of these different items, the ephemera from the movie, is in someone is in the hands of someone who loves this movie as much as we do. So that's thank you very much. It's a load off my mind, thinking that these things are being well taken care of and well
Oh,
loved.
thank you.
Wow. Well, again, thanks for being on the show. For people who would like to continue this conversation, we are available on a multitude of social media out there. We're not available on eBay, but there are lots of other things.
Our souls are available on
we're-
eBay for the right
Yeah.
Rocketeer prop. We can accept trades.
Yes. Well, we are always available on the normal social outlets of Twitter at Rocketeer Minute. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. You can find us on the great big site RocketeerMinute.com. We don't have cool swag like the stuff that Mike's talking about, but we have the normal mass-produced stuff that Amazon is willing to sell you for a certain price. So check that out at RocketeerMinute.com. We will be back with more newspapers and more kinds of stuff we'll be talking about tomorrow, Wednesday. So join us here on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Go get him, kid.